Thank you, Scott, for the introduction, Joe. With a little practice, you managed well to pronounce the name. So I'm more than happy to tell you about how we use data analytics within our internal audit within ING. Really how Knime helps us also in there to drive the efficiency, the effectiveness of internal audit. As said, my name is Tjasse Biewenga. I'm leading the data analytics team within internal audit within ING. I have personally a background in internal audit. I'm a chartered accountant and I did a postmaster in data science. So I grow from the audit into the data analytics, data science world. What I would like to, see if this works, it works. What I would like to do is to tell you a little bit about ING, very quick about internal audit, let's say our internal audit world, what does it look like, and what is the case for using data analytics, and show you some of the cases we have on using Knime in there. Very quick about ING. ING is a global bank with a strong European footprint. It's basically in the top 10 of European banks based on market capitalization. We have more than 38 million customers in all around the globe, 40 different countries. A lot of employees. We offer the full range of retail, wholesale banking products. So retail, the mortgages, the loans, the payment products, all these kind of things. That's basically, let's say the strategy of ING is really around superior customer experience and sustainability as key in the strategy. And if you then look at let's say, what are the main enablers for that strategy, you basically see that data is everywhere in there. So data-driven company that is really strategically important for us and for our company. Now, if you then look at our, let's say, internal audit world, our function itself has around 400 people, 420. They are based in more than 20 different countries. And they are both organized, let's say, as local teams, so focusing on one country, as global teams, focusing on, for instance, on compliance topic or credit risk topics. And you have expert teams just focusing and supporting the auditors on the floor there. And data analytics is one of them. And maybe I don't know if everyone is aware on what internal audit is doing, but basically our role is, that's just the formal statement, we provide assurance on managing risk towards senior management. So you can imagine that as a company you run quite a lot of different risks, and for a bank it's compliance risk or credit risk, and especially compliance risk in a highly regulated environment is really, really important in there. And now, how do we manage those risks? Basically, you have all kind of policies, procedures, controls in place. And what we do as internal audit is to provide the assurance. We come in, we look at certain processes and see if they are working in accordance with the policies, with the processes in there. Now, basically what is in scope for, let's say, for us as internal audit is basically everything within ING. So all locations, all services, all products, processes, IT systems, is basically everything. Now, you cannot audit that everything at once, so we divided that in what we call auditable entities. There's around 1,350, depends a little bit. Now, that is also not possible to do that, audit that all in 1 year. So basically there is an audit cycle of, on average, up to 3 years. So it's 1, 2, 3, 5 years, and then, it basically means that, let's say, from an audit perspective, an audit is just, let's say, a small little project. You focus on a certain topic, you focus on a certain process, you work on that, lead time is around 8 to 10 weeks, and then you move to the next topic, and what you've seen, you don't touch up on that for, now, on average, the 3 years there. Now, that is also driving our, let's say, our analytics world, how we want to do data analytics, what are the challenges in there. What we currently have is around, let's say, 65–70% of the audits where we apply analytics in, let's say, more than the Excel plus version. And that grows a little bit from when we start, what it was around 50%, and we want to grow it towards 80–85% in the next coming years. So there is still growth there. In general, let's say the data analytics, how does it work? What we do is we use the analytics and use the data as the start of an audit. So really to analyze the data we have, looking for anomalies, and those outliers, anomalies are then the input for the auditors on the ground to start further investigate. So we hand over the results, and then they will look into that further on. Why do we apply data analytics? Why do we have it? I think that in a data-rich environment like any bank at this stage, you can just get a lot of valuable insights by not just looking at samples or looking at small numbers, but really looking at portfolios, on controls, on things that there. So it's the effectiveness of your audit, what is one of the goals for analytics. So it's the effectiveness, it's bringing the scope, bringing scope and focus in your audit, and it also leads to efficiency gains in there. In that, it's good to mention that there is, if you look talk about efficiency in internal audit, especially for those, say, very small projects thing, it's good to mention that there is a certain order in there. Because just looking at efficiency as such, efficiency itself is coming from let's say, a process, operational process management point of view. And it most of the time says, if I do the same as, if I do today the same as yesterday with less people, then it's more efficient. Now, what you see in internal audit, it's really, let's say, our data analytics is really descriptive, diagnostic type of things, and it really is also that you say, okay, effectiveness of your audit is you get a lot more insights, you get a lot more things you dig into, much deeper into processes, and that is basically the first goal. And then later on, you say, okay, now I can repeat my my workflows, I can repeat my analysis, and that is bringing in the efficiency in there. And it's good to understand, because if you think about, especially in our work, think about efficiency as, okay, I can do already save tomorrow quite a lot of time, it's not going to work, because you really need to do that investment first to come to that level of really saving the time. Now, so it's really important that in that you start thinking about reusability. And that is bringing the efficiency in there. And another thing, what is also good to mention is, if you talk about in internal audit using analytics, in the Bible it says, in the book of Preachers, the more wisdom, the more grief. Now that's basically what you see within internal audit as well. the more you know, the more insights you get in what is going well and what is not going well in your environment, in your process. The more work it gets to analyze, to bring that to the audit teams. Now, the last part is also sometimes, let's say, hampering us in the journey towards have our internal audit function more data-driven, because you see that if you focus on, let's say, short-time efficiency and you put people under a lot of pressure, then doing the same thing today as you did yesterday is by far the most efficient, because that is what is more easy to have. Now, having said that, I think what you clearly see, there is a clear link in, if you talk about tooling and how we come to Knime, there's a clear link in what does it mean for what is our audit world, and how does that link into, okay, what does it mean for analytics, what does it mean for our approach, and what does it mean for our tooling? What you see, as I already said, in our audit world, you have all kind of individual projects, different topics, but also many audits which are on different topics, but also one audit which is then on different type of applications. Now, all those, if you then want to apply the analytics in there, it really means that you have different control tests for different topics, but also you want to have the consistency and the reusability by having the same test and then applied it on many different locations, but every time with different data sources. Now, one of the consequences of that in our, let's say, analytics approach is really that we say, okay, we need to focus on self-serve data analytics. We have a small team. I'm just having a central team of 5 people, hopefully in January 6 people, and we cannot support and do all the analytics for all the 400 people in around the world. So it's really important that people are able to perform their analysis specifically for that single audit as well. So that also is basically, let's say, our how we set up our structure. We have a small central team, around 6 people, but we focus a lot on training, we focus on transformation, showing what is possible, and also supporting them in the tooling. Now, what does it mean for our tooling? Of course, it needs to be intuitive, low code, no coding, because having 400 people into, let's say, coding skills, that is not going to happen there. So it's really building on, make it easy for people to start working. And the other side, it also needs to, the tool also needs to support the sharing, the collaboration. It needs to be flexible because we have to deal with many different data types, file types, databases, and it needs to be, let's say, scalable. So we need to be able to run, let's say, analysis on small portfolios of just 50 different loans, if it's in a corporate environment, corporate wholesale banking environment. But it also needs to be able to run analysis on, let's say, retail payments environment where you have millions of transactions per day. Now, that all needs to be handled. So that is basically how we come to Knime. For us, that is the tool we choose, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. Both what we have is both the analytics platform and also a server to support us in there. Of course, there is also the other tools as well, the good old Excel, but also the Power BI, SAS, Python for the more advanced use. And for us, it's really where we say, okay, why do we use Knime? It's really able to use as and a tool for people to start analyze, but it also is flexible enough for all other users to start to integrate with, for instance, with the Python code there as well. Now, how do we use it? It's basically, let's say, as intended. We're sharing we use the analytics platform for people to start creating their own workflow, specifically for their own audits and their environment. And then we use the server for what we call more generic solutions, and I will show you 2 of them later on, but also using for the higher volumes in there, sharing the workflows currently via a SharePoint environment. That's, oh yeah, important. There, can I go back? No. See if it works. Yeah, it works. Especially, as I said here, also for the server, what's important, bring your own data. So we have certain solutions. People can, with a web portal, people can just bring their own data from their local environment, from a local data source, and upload that, and then we run a set of control tests, which are just there, and provide them then with a standard set of, okay, those are the anomalies, those are the outliers from your data set, from your audit there. What I would like to show you, 2 of the use cases we have it. One is about image scanning, and the other one is about process mining. Well, and why do you choose this one? Because both are, let's say, the examples of how you bring more complex coding and make that available for, in our case, our auditors there. Even people without any coding experience or just the business auditors, they have all the skills there, but we help them to use this kind of tooling. A little bit background on the use case itself. I think you will know that fighting economic crime, terrorist financing, comply with all the sanctions regulations around the world is really a big topic in banking at this moment. And that whole set of controls really consist of know your customer, screen transactions, how do you comply with sanctions, and just check. And it's not only payment transactions, but in this case also relates to trade finance industry. And I don't know if you know, but trade finance, it comes with a lot of documentation. So it's most of the time short-term financing, but you really need, as a customer or as a client, to support quite a lot of documentation. And that comes in all kind of formats. It's invoices, it's contracts, it's load documentation, all these kind of things are in there. And what you need to do as a bank is to go through all that documentation and see if there are names or just, let's say, persons, but it can also be ports and ships and all kind of things. Scan all those documentation on if they are on, let's say, a sanction list. Now, what is actually, let's say, the actual process is that there are analysts need to go just manually read all the documents, highlight all the names in there, put them in a Swift message, and then run them, those things to the sanction, the screening machines. That's basically the process, how it works. Now, you can imagine that it's quite a lot of work. So what we did for our audit, initially it started with, for our audit, but it's also necessary, and we later on transferred it to the business, to see if you can develop an OCR type of tooling, which then is able to read that documentation. It's important to note that OCR is of course, that's not a very difficult, and that's quite common technology. The only thing is what was important in here is that you're able to show that you have read the documents, the completeness of screening. So it's not just enough to know that, let's say, that screening works in 90% of cases, it works fine. What you really need to know is which 90% and which 10% has not been read correctly. That is the important thing in there. So that is what we developed here. Now, how does it look like? Basically, what it gives us, it starts with an invoice, and it gives out it resulted in an image with the coloring in there based on the confidence level of the OCR. That's basically what is happening, and then the second step is that it starts scanning all the names and all the individual words and scan that against the sanction list. So the PDF image is red, and the color is then indicating the confidence level, and the blue boxes shows the screening hits in there. Now, you can imagine that in this kind of things, if you talk about efficiency gains, this is really what is previously analysts need to scan manually, sometimes more than 100 pages. They now can look through the images and focus just on the words, the text, which are not scanned or only with a low confidence level. Now, how does it look like under the hood? It's basically the different steps. We've built this one in our web server. So you see there's different steps in there with the Python code in there, just the different things based on the Tesseract and the Popular library. Another one, process mining, and then, I don't know, maybe some of you have seen a data talk 1.5 years ago. It was also showing this one. I don't know if you know what process mining is, but it's basically what you see is that in many business processes, also in the bank, you have the log files in the IT systems, which are basically supporting all the different processes. So for instance, if you have a mortgage and you apply for a mortgage, then how does it show in the IT application is that you start with you create a mortgage application, and then you have the different steps. It gets reviewed, you need to send in documentation, documentation needs to be checked, and then finally you get an approval. That's basically the process, how it works. And in the IT, it's followed by some kind of what we call an event log, which is basically saying, okay, for this mortgage transaction, you have all the different statuses in there with what status, which time, and who did make the changes in there. Now, if you have those event logs, you can start analyzing it and for instance, building the process graphs around it. Now, also there, we developed this tooling. Basically, you have quite specialized tooling to do this, but it's quite expensive and it doesn't fit, let's say, in our data analytics for everyone approach. So we really built, let's say, a more simple version and make that one available to all staff in the server. And we use it basically, let's say, to get insights in the different processes, but you can also use it more a little bit outside the audit context for process optimization, finding efficiencies, look for bottlenecks, all these kind of things. Now, how does it look like? This is our Knime web portal. We like the orange color. This is the one we have. So we changed that there. And we just have all the workflows available, the generic solutions available here. So we have something about data quality checks. The scan tool is there, and also the process mining. How does it work? You just have, you log in, you upload your file, it gets validated, you need to assign the different columns, and then you can start with the analysis. Now, the first analysis is how many transactions do you have over time. You can select if you want to focus on a certain period, or before or after any reorganization, restructuring. You can have a look at there. And then it comes up with this kind of nice process graphs. And what you need to remember if you talk about this kind of graphs, this is based on, let's say, actual data. And normally, if we do an audit, and the audit process normally works that you go in, you read documentation, you do interviews just to see how it works. In that case, most of the time you get this kind of pictures, because just people tell you what is in the documentation. They tell you how a normal process looks like. But if you start using this kind of process mining tooling, then people start, this is what actually happening. And then you see that sometimes, there are a lot more possibilities. There is sometimes a lot of rework in there. And then you can get into more analysis. What's the timestamp? What's the time between two steps? What kind of analysis can you do on that? What's the most frequent path? All these kind of things we build currently in this version. And you see here also that we have a download result. So if you have certain processes, certain transactions you want to look further into, then you can download the results and use that as an input for the auditors to further look into. That's what's in here. Now, what is in here is basically the same steps you see as what we had when we developed this. This is basically how to build those process graphs. That's over when we start developing. This was the most difficult part to have. So there is the JavaScript view, the JavaScript code, which is basically behind here and says, okay, you can, which is building, the code is basically building the code which is necessary to run the process graphs. Now, two examples just to show how we bring that efficiency in, how the Knime works with that. And it basically also brings me to the end of this presentation. From my side, thank you very much, but Scott always has always questions, so.
Always have questions. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we will take a couple of questions here from the room. If we have some from online, you guys let me know. We'll get those too. Oh, look, it's an online one right away. So this is maybe a little bit more of a general question. I don't know if you've run into this or not. If you've built workflows on your personal machine, how did IT react to that? Were there any data security challenges associated with that? Have you had to fight that battle?
How much time do we have? No, I think it's fair to say that if you talk about the next step, we start building, let's say, our journey by having implemented Knime and having things start building it and developing it on local machines. And I think that going forward, this is not going to be sustainable. So at least IT has some issues from our compliance, from our data security perspective. It is not something which we will have over time. So in that sense, I think also the opportunities as shown with the business hub, the version, is really something we need to very carefully look into, that we, over time, the more data is centrally available, the more data we also can, let's say, analyze in a well-contained environment there. So it's a good question, and it's really something for us to further develop and make steps in there.
And certainly no one in this room has developed a workflow first and asked for permission later. That's never happened. So, do we have any questions here? Oh, I see in the back. Alex has a mic for you.
Great presentation, thanks for that. Question on your citizen developer community. So I think you said that you're a team of 6 folks supporting 400 auditors. Are you getting engagement from your audit colleagues in using Knime to build workflows, and how successful that is, and what are the main reasons for it being successful, if it is successful?
Now, what you see is that what we currently have is what we're currently building is let's say, the data expert group. So that's the next step. We started with a central organization. We now have already, let's say, a community group internally of people who are interested in handling, using data analytics, develop the kind of things. And we are really in the process now to further, let's say, formalize that. But also there you see that is the next step for us as well, that we have more and more, let's say, experts in the teams there to start building this kind of things. So it's a really important thing also for us to further grow in.
Fair enough. I think I'll stop with the questions there because the angry light is blinking at me. And I know that everybody's probably looking forward to lunch. But I do want to thank Tjasse for the interesting presentation. Thanks for letting us know how you've been using Knime at ING. Everybody please give him a thank you.